Today on the Unlisted Backlog, we have PK Out of the Shadows. And yes, I've read the reviews and watched the videos. I've done plenty of research and it's not great. You could stop, I understand. But they're not completely terrible. Mostly bad, but there is some indication that there is some sort of quality game here. So let's dive into what Disney Interactive and Ubisoft had going in 2002 to turn classic Donald Duck into a superhero. I'm going to skip over the intro pretty fast because it truly does not matter to this video or even that much for the real game, to be honest. But basically, Donald Duck is a security officer at some big tower, and he's reading a comic book, presumably one that's similar to the comic book this game is based off of. And as he's reading it, he drifts off to sleep, and he gets a call from Daisy Duck, as well as Huey, Dewey, and Louie. And they're basically saying, "Oh, Donald, you can't protect anything," which is kind of mocking him because he's a security guard. And then Donald Duck's like, "I'll show you, I can defend." And the world in between the people he's trying to impress and then the comic book is reading kind of blend together, and that's how we get PK Out of the Shadows. So if we look at the manual about what type of bad guys are invading and what we're protecting from, it says Everonians, expansionists and warlike. The Everonians live on Evron, a semi-artificial planet traveling through outer space in search of new worlds to conquer and exploit. So basically, alien bad guys that are ducks are invading. So just a mix of the comic book and coming together in a dream with Donald Duck wants to prove himself. So that's how Donald Duck gets put into the comic book. It's all a dream. There we go. Okay, so back in 2002, PK Out of the Shadows did not get fantastic reviews. But it was never gonna get fantastic reviews. That's not the point. We're not trying to do anything revolutionary, nothing crazy. The reason why PK Out of the Shadows was made was to get new audiences in different regions, especially younger audiences, to get interested in the PK comic book series from Italy. Because they were just finishing up, I believe, their last run of the comic book series in like January of 2001. So this is the perfect time to release a game and just kind of rake in as much cash in the franchise as you can. Now that we're 2 minutes and 45 seconds into the video, it's only fair that I actually show some gameplay. So, here you go. While you're watching that gameplay, listen into the background music that's currently playing. This track is from World 2 Map 4, supposedly, but we don't know for sure because this track was never actually used in the game. It was found on a copy of PK Out of the Shadows for the GameCube, but never used in any levels when you actually play through it. So, boom, fun little bonus track for you. And overall, I think the music in the game is decent. It's enjoyable, really. And kind of iconic when you're going back and looking at all these clips and reviewing videos where you kind of get into the music. Just saying, for what it is, it really didn't need that good of a music track, but I feel like they did a better job than they really had to. Overall, when looking at this game, it's just fun to play. I think it has a good balance of story and gameplay for what it is. You have to really narrow your scope down to think, this is just playing a superhero duck adventure. Don't overthink it. You don't need anything crazy. Just accept that. And then it's a decent platformer / shooter game. It kind of gets you stressed out a little bit in the boss fights, although they're not terribly hard. If you're a kid, you can get a decent amount of hours of this, but if you're a veteran gamer, then yeah, you're looking at 3 to 4 hours realistically, and you could kind of just breeze through it, which I think's fine. There's enough interesting things about this game, like its music, its art design revolving kind of around the comic book style, the different unique characters. It's just different and it works. Not incredibly well, but the entire game just gets a B grade, which is still good. I'm just tired of every single new game coming out being half-baked. It's really nice that PK Out of the Shadows is fairly bug-free. Now, there are a few little things I'm going to touch on, but nothing that's that game-breaking. The biggest complaint I have is the difference in between the PlayStation 2 version and the GameCube version. Specifically, the GameCube version of the snow effect looks way better. This is very, very minor, but if you look at PlayStation 2, this is where I played it, and it's just kind of hard to see. The snow effect smudges your screen, and it's all over way more than it should be, where if you look on GameCube, it actually looks like snow and the effect they were going for, which I think is really interesting. And another thing as well, I looked at a developer copy of this game and saw some in-game screenshots where they actually had a menu where you could change different filters, presumably the filters that would do things like the snow effect. So I'm assuming this is the type of thing that they could just switch on and off easily, maybe while actually inside the developer copy of the game, but I don't know for sure. I think this might have been an oversight before shipping the title, because almost certainly the GameCube version is just better. There's not really trade-offs. It is just a better filter. And then if you look at the PlayStation 2 versions the more later at like the desert levels, then you see that it has a very similar style to the way that the GameCube did the snow level. So I think this might be a bug or just oversight. It plays fine, and if you weren't super particular and not looking at the games side by side, you wouldn't really ever notice, but I picked up on it. As far as some other glitches before we go into the game being overall pretty decent, and I'll talk about that more in a moment, coins sometimes pop in. The distance coins pop in is really shocking for this game, because overall, due to the level design, I feel like pop-in's not an issue at all, except for certain areas, coins just pop in and out, and it's more confusing than it is annoying, because everything else renders in just fine. You could be cruising at a high FPS in areas that you wouldn't really think pop-in would be an issue, and then boom, coins 15 feet in front of you pop up. It's really odd, but it doesn't really happen in any platforming areas where you have to go specific paths to get all the coins, so it's okay. They're normally ones that you're just going to run into anyway. Though an issue with running into coins that I do have with this game, possibly the biggest bug, which again is not difficult, it doesn't stop you or slow you down, you could easily 100% this game and it really would be fine. Sometimes coins are glitched until you respawn, so you could walk directly into coins and nothing will happen. That's only specific ones. If you have a row of 3 coins, maybe one of them will do it. But as soon as you die and restart at a checkpoint, and then you go through those coins again, every single time I had this glitch happen to me, it completely solved the issue. So, it's not terrible. PK's weapon, the X-Transformer, has a lot of cool stuff, but the lock-on system needs more work than anything. It is functional as intended, but I think it should have been designed differently. Let me explain. So let's say there's a bad guy directly in the middle of your screen. You are locking eyes with him while you're trying to jump from platform to platform, stay on, dodge all the different world obstacles, everything like that, as well as hopping over bullets and strafing side to side. You would think because you're focusing on the bad guy, if you hit the lock-on button, it will just lock on to the guy you're looking at, but unfortunately not. It locks on in the direction that PK is facing. So let's say you're running left to right to try to stay on a platform or do a timed jump. He's going to try to lock on in the left or right direction instead of straight ahead, where the bad guys are going to be 99% of the time. And it's just really frustrating whenever you're trying to shoot the guy that you have been staring at for the past 30 seconds, and you can't because you actually have to be actively walking in the direction that he is, or stop moving and readjust yourself in order to shoot. It's clunky. I see where they were going, and it does work, and it is playable, but both the GameCube and the PlayStation 2 were designed for 2 analog sticks, where one's used to move and the other's used to look. And you know that they supported the feature because if you hold down the right bumper, in most areas you could use the right joystick to manually move the camera, where the other rest of the time it's done automatically. So like, there was definitely the tools here, and they had the option to develop in where the lock-on system is based on the camera and not PK's direction. And it feels like a missed opportunity, and I feel like it really would have added to the value of this game and bumped up a lot of critic scores. I've read that emulation for this game works decently, but I haven't tried that myself, as I played a physical copy on an original fat PS2. And the frame rate was pretty good throughout. It was a nice, enjoyable experience. There were a couple of dips into the high 20 FPS, but it was all very playable, and I really wasn't looking for more performance out of this game. It looked and ran decently for what it is. Thanks to the Wayback Machine, we're able to see what the original website for PK Out of the Shadows looked like when it was in the pre-order phase. And I think this website is a perfect example for what I've been trying to say. PK Out of the Shadows looks good, it functions well, and most importantly, it does what it set out to do. I've looked through the promotional material not only on this website, but every single promotional piece of information I've been able to find on this game about PK, and everything they say they're going to do, they do inside the game. Which, I feel like you shouldn't get an award just for being honest and transparent with your audience, but man, video game marketing teams have been just disappointing me after disappointing me in the past couple of years. For example, I just bought the new Forza Motorsport this weekend, and a couple months ago they released a gameplay demo of the graphics running on a high-end PC, and they looked fantastic. And they still look fantastic now that I'm running it at home on a high-end PC, but they're not as good. The graphics that are shipped with the game are just slightly worse than what was in the promotional material, and it's a bummer. But with PK Out of the Shadows, the pre-order is exactly what you're going to get in the game, and for only $20, it's a solid title where the target audience is probably going to get closer to 6 hours out of it, and more hardcore gamers that just want to run through it. Still, 3 hours for $20 isn't terrible when it's not a grindy game, and it's pretty complete overall. Howdy, my name is Marshall, and I am a real person that reviewed PK Out of the Shadows and made this nice little video. Originally, I just picked up this title because I thought it was interesting, and the way that I use my PlayStation 2 is connected through a capture card anyway because fancy new TVs don't accept analog inputs. So it was already a digital signal going through OBS, so I decided to hit record, and then after I went through the game and liked playing it, I wanted to do a little bit more research and see what other people thought. And I found out it had pretty negative reviews, and also the amount of people that reviewed it was pretty slim. There wasn't too much content about PK Out of the Shadows, which was a main Ubisoft and Disney title back in the day. I just thought there should be a little bit more, so I gave a stab about making my first ever game review, and that's what we have here. And I just kind of wanted to show you a little bit behind the scenes. This is my first time learning Premiere Pro for this type of video format, and I also did some research. Here's some links if you're mildly interested, not all of them, but just kind of cool to think about. I'm a real person, and you leaving a like or a comment would directly impact me. I have over 3,000 hours on Clicky Clicker, and I like just seeing numbers go up, so if you felt like contributing something as a you could do this better or I liked it, I would really appreciate it. And hey, if you have the opportunity to legitimately try picking up this game or an older game that might be lost to time, as PK Out of the Shadows is coming close to 21 years old, and I'm probably the only person thinking about this fairly quality game right now.